So I know at first glance there appears to be 4 different types of permutation formulas, and that might seem a little confusing and overwhelming at the beginning, but it's really just about recognizing the scenario that you're dealing with. So we've seen times where your permutation or n choose r is equal to just n factorial. Well, there are certain conditions that must be met when that is the case. The first condition that has to be is that repetition is not allowed. So the second condition that must be met for us to use this formula over here is that the your n, or the sample size, or the set size, is equal to the number you're choosing. So number of choices. So what we really mean is that the n is equal to the r. So let's say I have a word like education, and I ask, how many ways can you rearrange the word education into 9 letters? Well, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 letters in the set, and we're choosing 9 letters to rearrange. So in this case, we would just go 9 factorial, right? Assuming that repetition isn't allowed. Now the next one, where your permutation is equal to n to the exponent r, for this formula to be used, this is when repetition is allowed. And not only is it allowed, but the repetition, is going to be for, so I'm going to write here, is for the same objects in the set. Okay, so let's say you have choices of 10 colors, and you're allowed to repeat. Okay, and from the that color set, you're choosing 4. Well, it's possible that all 4 could be the same color because it allows for that. So your sample size is 10. The number of colors that you're choosing from is 4. And you're not choosing between, colors and numbers and something else. It's just colors. So repetition is allowed, but it's for the same object, in this case colors, in the set. Now, in this case, if we look at the third formula, where your number of permutations is equal to n factorial over r factorial, I think a better way to write it is r factorial times r factorial 2 times r factorial 3, etc. And what that means is this, again, refers to different objects within a set. Now, for this, once again, it has to be repeated. So repetition must be allowed. Now, I'm going to say this here so that it's hopefully easier for you to understand. Once repetition is allowed, you can immediately go between these two formulas, right? Because this one only works when repetition isn't allowed. So when repetition is allowed, you're working between these two. And in this case, you have different objects or things in the set repeated. So let's say I want to ask, how many ways can we rearrange the word kiss into 4 letter words, okay, into 4 different letters. So here I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the sample size is 4. And then divided by, well, what repeats here? My S repeats and repeats twice. So I can choose two ways to repeat the S, and then multiplied by 1 for the I factorial and 1 for the K factorial. And so when you got a set that has different things in this case, different letters, but some of them repeat, you're going to go to this formula here. Now, finally, the last main formula that you see, we say NPR is equal to n factorial, okay, over n minus r factorial. So the conditions that are needed for this one is repetition not allowed. Okay, so I'm going to write isn't allowed once again. And the second thing is that you're choosing a different number of objects from set total. What does that mean? Let's say I have, in this case, if I have 10 colors and I only want, let's say, 4 of them again. And repetition isn't allowed. Now, if repetition is allowed, then I would go to this formula over here, right? But in this case, of the 10, I don't want to rearrange all 10 colors. I just want to rearrange 4 of them from the set of 10. So in this case, my sample size is 10, and then it would be 10 minus 4, and repetition isn't allowed. So we would have to signify repetition not allowed. So there are two formulas where repetition is allowed, and you decide between the two formulas. And then there are two formulas where the repetition isn't allowed. If you're choosing a certain number of objects from a set, you're going to use this formula. If you're choosing all the objects in the set, then you're going to use this formula. If repetition is allowed and you're repeating the same type of object or same object within a set, then you could use this formula. And then if you have different objects in the set or different letters, different numbers, etc., repetition is allowed, then you're going to use this formula here. So like the word kiss, where we had different letters inside that set of 4.